goes into another illustration, verse 5. How great a fire is set ablaze by such a small fire. Now, James lived in the Palestine area, which was mainly a desert. So it wasn't forest fires he's talking about. But if you go in the desert, what you'll notice are brush fires. And they didn't have the technology or the science that we do now, so they didn't know how to contain a fire. So a little spark can just take over a whole side of a hill. And so if you look at our tongue, you see the same potential damage your tongue can do. Your tongue has so much more potential than what we often give it credit for. They talked about a study I read where when a person communicates with you, 20% you get from the person is from their words, but 80% is from their body language and tone. So it's like, again, the problem of your tongue is not just what you're saying, it's also how you're saying it. Doesn't it matter how a person says something? Like, what if I taught this way? Jesus loves you. Yeah, he loves you. Be happy. Right? So you could say the right things to people like, I love you. Ugh, yeah, I guess. And they know what you're saying. And so it's not enough to be like, Andrew, just tell me the words. I'm going to stick to the script and I'll never sin with my mouth. No, it comes out in your tone and body language, all sorts of things. You cannot hide your body language even though you try to control your words. So controlling your tongue, again, is not just what words you cannot say. It's controlling your heart. If you cannot forgive that person from your heart, it doesn't matter what you said or didn't say to them. It'll come out in your nonverbal language as well. And that kind of language still damages relationships and all sorts of things. I don't know how many organizations have crumbled, how many churches have split, I've heard, all because of uncontrolled tongue. Think about the last time you've seen something devastating in your life. It probably started with some words that went unchecked, some attitudes that went unchecked. Something that could have been solved so easily if you just nip in the bud, but because of our pride, we just let it escalate and escalate and escalate, and then it becomes what? Too much damage, you can't even reverse course anymore. Right? The tongue is like a bell. Once you ring it, you can't unring it. Once you send that tweet, you send that email, it's there forever. You cannot apologize and make it disappear because a person can forgive, but they won't forget. I've forgiven people in my life, but I haven't forgotten their words, certain words, or certain things people have said to me. You know, there's a phrase that says, when you squeeze an orange, you will never get lemon juice. Why? Because when you squeeze something, you only get what was already inside. And so what that means is that the external pressures of life didn't cause you to become this horrible person. It wasn't because you're suffering that all of a sudden you became a violent person with your tongue, or all of a sudden you complained a lot. What the external pressures of life does to you in the trials is squeezes what was already in you. Oh, I can't believe that came out of my mouth. Yes, you can, because I was already in there. You just didn't have the right context for it to come out. Oh, I'm never angry. You will be in a certain context. If there's enough squeezing, at some point, you'll see all the nastiness come out. It's like squeezing that sponge, and you squeeze it enough, you get that gunky black water coming out. That's all in our hearts. And just because, and you might be thinking, oh, my tongue is so perfect and pure. Okay, let life squeeze you hard enough at some point. Let trials come. Wait till life is truly unfair for you. Not just when you're complaining you didn't get that raise, but when the loved one is hurting and sick. When a true injustice was actually done to you. Where you lost all your finances. Where people betrayed you and gossip about you, about all sorts of things that weren't true. As life squeezes you, what comes out? What comes out of you? When you squeeze an orange, you never get lemon juice. And so if you see all sorts of evil and harmful words coming out of your heart as life squeezed you, what that reveals is that you already had a corrupt heart. Life didn't make you corrupt, you were already corrupt to begin with. Where do you think I got this idea? Well, James says it, but he also gets it from Jesus himself. Remember Jesus in Matthew 15, he says, it's not what goes into your mouth that defiles you, it's what comes out of your mouth. You know what that's saying? Jesus is saying that a lot of times we think that the solution to our evil is we take an outside-in approach. Change the outside, then our insides will change. So let me change my environment. I just got to hang out with people who aren't so bad. I just got to go to a church that's better. I just got to, be in an environment where it's not so evil. If I change the outside, if I change the way I talk, if I change the way I dress, if I change my vocabulary, then the inside of me will change. Outside-in approach is called legalism. Legalism is the belief that if you change your actions, then your heart will change. Jesus says it's not what the outside, it's not what comes in that corrupts you. It's an inside-out approach. Meaning this needs to change in order for this to change. What needs to change is not you have to change your environment. What needs to change, you need to change your heart. Your inside is corrupt. That's why the outside is corrupt. And so the goal isn't for you to change your outside hoping your heart changes. You have to change your heart so that your outside changes. That's what James is saying as well. Change your heart, then your tongue will change. Don't try to change your tongue from the outside thinking that somehow that's going to change. Oh, let me say this. Let me not say this. Let me swear. No, that won't matter. And so how do you change the heart? Well, look at what James says here in verse 6. He says, and the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. His tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell. So how do you change the tongue? You have to change your heart. Because if you don't change your heart, what will inevitably happen is that your tongue will set something on fire in your life that will affect not just you, it will affect your body, your life, and everything around you. Now, when he uses the word hell, he's not talking about you will go to hell because your tongue is out of control. That's not what he's saying. The word hell is actually the word Gehenna. Do you guys remember what Gehenna was? It was an actual place. So when Jesus actually said the word hell, he often is using the word Gehenna. He's saying that because he's using an actual illustration that was in front of them. Gehenna referred to the Valley of Hinnom. The Valley of Hinnom was a valley that was right outside of Jerusalem. Now this, during Jesus' time, was a dumpster where they would take all the trash, sometimes dead bodies, and they'll burn it up there. The reason why they did that is because in the Old Testament, the Valley of Hinnom was a place that Israel committed child sacrifice to the god Molech. So it became associated with dark and evil. So by the time of Jesus, it was a place that was dark because it was a valley, but it always had fire burning. And you could smell the ash and see the ash from Jerusalem. So when Jesus talks about fire and ash and darkness, he's using that as an illustration. He's not saying that's literally how hell's going to be like. He's using that literal picture as an illustration of the type of darkness and pain that will be in hell. Does that make sense? So when Jesus says hell and James is saying hell, they're actually using the word dumpster fire. So here's what James is saying. Your tongue, when it's uncontrolled, will set dumpster fires in your life everywhere you go. You burn up your relationships, you burn up your family, burn up churches, you burn up your job, you burn bridges, literally, that phrase. You're just burning things up. And everyone who gets close to you just gets hurt by you because of your tongue.